Whew, it's pretty awful. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's the worst type in the game. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm PokemonChallenges. I'm probably the best Nuzlocker in the world. And today, we're going to be looking at which Pokemon types we think are the best for your Nuzlocking experience. We'll go through all the types. We'll rate them as how good they are on average for your Nuzlocks. If you go to Pokemon with this type, how good is it going to be? Let's go. Let's get into it. Woo! Let's go. Starting out, I'm actually not going to start alphabetically here. I'd like to start with the steel typing. Steel types are obviously S tier. They're incredibly sturdy. They're incredibly good to use. They have so many resistances, immunities, fantastic typing, weaknesses that are very easy to play around, so good for pivoting and everything. Steel types are super high quality. But do you know what else is very sturdy, high quality, S tier, and made of metal? That's right, the sponsor of this video, Displate. Look at this. This is a poster. Look at this awesome Hollow Knight poster. Yeah, that's sturdy. That's pretty sturdy. If you go to the link in the description or displate.com/PokemonChallenges, you can support the stream and get some high quality posters. They have tons of partners, millions of them actually, working on them. Lots of different, from Marvel, superhero stuff, music, TV shows, movies. I have a bunch of TV show posters behind me there, video games, all sorts of stuff that you could need from Displate. Just cool designs all around. The mounting is really, really easy. I have this hanging in my living room and I just took it off the wall because the way it's mounted on the wall is through a magnet, which you just stick on the wall, and then you can mount the display, and then you can even change them if you don't like the way that you arrange them or whatever. You can flip them out however you want. That's great. They also have a tree planting program. They will actually be planting one tree for every display you buy as part of the Forest Gardens project. If you think that sounds awesome, if you think that sounds cool, if you think these look nice, go over to display.com/PokemonChallenges, get a discount, look at some of the designs, and check them out. So yeah, steel types got a little bit worse after Gen 6 when it got nerfed, when it lost the dark and ghost resistance, but it's still S tier. It's incredible. Defensive typings like this are really, really good for your Nuzlocks. The fact that steel type attacks are not that good doesn't really matter. You don't really need stab moves. Your steel types are going to do a lot of work for you. They're usually super physically defensive. It's worth noting that in a lot of vanilla games, a lot of Pokemon just have like normal type moves. So if you get like an early steel type somehow, like a Bronzor or something, it's such an incredibly good pivot. Moving on from bug types. I actually don't think bug types are completely bad. I would probably put them in C tier. I think bug types have their place. They have some resistances that are nice. Taking on grass types can be good because those can be pretty common when you're playing through single player games. And there's a lot of bug types that are just pretty good. A lot of them really aren't though. But I would say that a lot of the early game bug types that evolve out of Caterpie or Weedle or Wurmple are generally underrated, and early game bug types can be pretty powerful. Moving on from that, dark types are kind of hard to place for me. I think everything that has an immunity in Nuzlocke gets a huge boost because if you're playing against an AI, having an immunity is an insane advantage. I think it depends a lot on the gen. I think Gen 2 and 3 dark types are kind of bad just because there are really no good dark types that you can use commonly, except for like Houndoom. Sharpedo is okay, I guess, but like all the good dark types are like physical attackers, so they really get good into like Gen 4. But in like Gen 4, Gen 5, before fairy types existed, I would say they're super high tier. I would put them on average somewhere in B tier. It just depends on the gen that you're playing, but having an immunity is always really good. I think dragon types are S tier. They have an insane amount of defensive coverage, offensive coverage. I don't think really have to talk about it. They have so many resistances, so little weaknesses that are so common and so uncommon and easy to play around. Obviously, dragon types are balanced by the fact that they're usually only available late game, but if you do get a dragon type late game, you should probably be using it. Dragon types also have insane move pools. They're just generally really good, probably over steel types. I think electric types are A tier, only having one weakness, and one weakness that is a very common immunity as well is incredibly good. The problem with electric types is they usually have very low move pools and are usually not very defensive. So electric types like serve one purpose, and that is to kill water types, kill flying types. Those are two purposes, I guess. And then bait ground type moves, so you can easily switch into stuff. I think electric types in general are pretty damn useful though. I think usually they should make their way onto one team or another in your Nuzlocks, and having only one weakness, in my opinion, makes them A tier. Fairy types are really hard for me to rate because I very rarely do post Gen 5 Nuzlocke. If I had to guess, I would say fairy types are A tier, is what would be my guess. It's kind of hard to judge for me because I just don't have a lot of experience. I would say that they're really good. It's just an incredible typing with just not a lot of weaknesses, a lot of good like resistances, hits a lot of things. I just don't see it on the level as like steel or dragon types. I think they're A tier. They might be higher than that. It just kind of depends. Being immune to dragon is really nice, but you have to keep in mind that in most games, you're not facing that many dragon types. Obviously, for competitive, it's a really good typing, but I don't think that really applies to Nuzlocke. I don't think fairy types are good, like as good as they are in competitive, because you just don't face as many like dragon types and stuff. Fighting types. I think fighting types are really good. They have a lot of common weaknesses, and they have pretty move pools usually, but being able to just like take on normal types and like nuke a lot of with like high attack moves is pretty good. I think they're B tier. I think it really depends on the generation. Again, I think they get a lot better with every generation almost. I think they're like high B tier depending on what gen you're playing. A pretty good offensive type that isn't too bad defensively. I think fighting types oftentimes make their way onto your teams. Fire types are kind of like electric types, where like their purpose is to like be a lead mon and take out something that is weak to them. If they don't have a favorable type matchup, they can be kind of rough. I think they still sit in A tier though. I think the typing is pretty good. You're weak to a lot of stuff. You're weak to like rock and ground and stuff, but those things are pretty easy to cover. I think fire types are great. Flying types. So flying types have an immunity, which makes them inherently good. And they're usually pretty quick, and it's a pretty good offensive type. I think they're B tier. They have a lot of weaknesses, and a lot of flying type Pokemon just kind of suck. It's just way too easy to stop, just like a flying type. Like it needs a lot of support, but it can do a lot in like a team. I think just the fact that they do have an immunity and they do sometimes have really powerful moves can put them like higher than C tier in my opinion. I just think the offensive capabilities aren't really there. Ghost types are weird, man. Ghost types usually have really interesting move pools, and they do have that normal and fighting immunity, which is huge. It's really weird to place. I think it's A tier. Ghost types even often have like another immunity in levitate. The offensive like uses aren't actually that great, because that you hit super effectively, like psychic types and ghost types will usually also be able to hit you back. It's weird. I think they're low A tier though. I think they're super, super good early game if you can get them. And if you know what you're doing, and if you know what you're going up against. They don't resist a lot of stuff, but like they do have the immunities. I'm kind of tempted to put them in high B tier almost, but I just think for like certain vanilla games and certain like things that you face with like a bunch of poison and normal type moves, I think ghost types can just be so useful. Grass types are weird. I used to think grass types are C tier. I am at a point where I think they're B tier now. I actually think that grass types, because of their move pool, get quite the bump. Their defensive capabilities really aren't great. You're weak to a lot of common stuff. Fire, flying, poison, bug. It's really not great. But just the fact that you have access to like really early setup moves like growth, really early like leech seed stuff, a lot of like weird setup moves, sleep powder, spore, right? Like you just have so many tools at your disposal that a grass type can very easily find its way onto a team in like kind of a support role. And grass types are also kind of good for pivoting sometimes. Also, offensive fast grass types can be pretty great when you're going through the routes in the game where you're facing like a lot of water types. So I really don't think grass types are C tier. Ground types are weird, man. Stab Earthquake is nice, right? Electric immunity is nice. I just think you have a lot of weaknesses and not enough resistances to make up for them. It's a really weird pick because you also often just don't get a lot of like solo ground types. Like it's usually like a secondary typing. I feel like, at least that's what it feels like to me. I would put it in B tier. I think they're okay. Like I feel like usually if you have a dual typing, if it's not rock, but that's kind of because rock sucks, spoilers, you usually benefit from the ground typing. Ice type is the worst type of the game. No defensive capabilities whatsoever, only resists itself. Awful to switch into anything. Stab ice moves are kind of nice, but why would you want to stab ice move? You could just be a water type and use your ice moves, you know? Like, so I think ice would be like a more viable typing if ice moves were like really powerful and they only gave them to actual ice types. But every water type gets ice moves anyway, so you have like no reason to use ice Pokemon. They're so bad. They're weak to like everything. fighting, rock, fire. Like it's awful. And like ice, on top of that, ice types usually aren't even that good. Like they have like really mons like Gen 2 Sneasel and Dugong and shit like that. And usually if you're like a water type, like you don't want that ice type. You want your fire resistance, man. Like it's pretty awful. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's the worst type in the game. If you have an ice type on your team, you're doing like a very specific strat. I think normal types are pretty good. Only having one weakness is actually kind of nice. Not having any resistances obviously sucks, and then you have an immunity, I guess, but it's not a very common one. I think normal types are weird to place. I think they're really good in like Gen 1. And having like normal stab is really good early game for a lot of Pokemon. Obviously, it's really bad offensively, but it's kind of made up for the fact that normal types usually have like crazy move pools. Like the type with probably on average the best move pool in the game. I think they go somewhere in B tier. I think poison types are C tier. I think poison has a lot of cool resistances that can be useful, and they have a lot of like interesting move pools to play with a lot of the time. Like they're not on the level of ice where they're just awful. Like poison can be good. The offensive capabilities of poison are so awful, especially pre-fairy types, that like you don't really have a reason to use like stab poison moves. It's just kind of nice for like pivoting and resistances and stuff. I think psychic types are probably A tier. They're obviously really good in Gen 1. They're pretty good in Gen 2. They usually have really good move pools. I just think maybe this is my Emerald Kaizo bias, right? It's like psychic types are usually like Mr. Mime or Grumpig, where it's like super meaty, or like Giraffrig or something, where it's like super mediocre stats and like you can't really do anything, and like the things that you hit super effectively you can like use other for, and you don't really need your psychic type. Or it's something like Alakazam, where it's just like a glass cannon, where like there's other like glass cannon types like fire or electric that like do that way better. I think later gens psychic types get a lot better, especially if they're more defensive stuff. And like Calm Mind is obviously a pretty good move. A lot of them have like access to Calm Mind Recover. I think they're B tier. Tiers aren't really ordered very well. Rock types are also D tier. Rock is a great offensive type, kind of like Ice, but it just sucks defensively. You're weak to so much, and it's so common. Being weak to water, being weak to grass, being weak to ground, being weak to fighting. You resist normal and like poison and like flying. That's cool. That can be useful. Resisting normal is actually pretty good. It almost tempts me to put it into C tier, because I do think rock is like actually kind of above ice. It's kind of like poison, where like it actually I think has pretty common uses. And also stab rock moves are pretty good. They can also be good early game. I think they're definitely not D tier. I actually think that they top out C tier. Actually being able to resist stuff is nice. Ice is just on another level. Water has me kind of conflicted. I think it's either S tier or high A. I just don't think it's on the level of Dragon or Steel. I think Dragon or Steel are just on another level, right? I think Water does have like its weaknesses. It does have its move pool restrictions. It does have its share of awful Pokemon. But only being weak to grass and electric is so great, right? Resisting fire is nice. You hit so much. It's just like very good defensively, but then it's also really versatile offensively. It's just pretty damn good. Most Pokemon you can combo like water and ice type moves for like really good coverage, so you have that going on. They usually have like pretty interesting move pools. They're super versatile. You can use them in so many different ways, defensively, offensively. It's great. It's a great typing. So yeah, that would be all the types ranked for Nuzlocking. I would say that's my list. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with any placements. I'll be sure to read those comments for sure. Definitely gonna read them. Yeah, thank you for watching. Shout out to Display, display.com/PokemonChallenges. Down in the description, get some discounts on some awesome metal posters. I suck at outro. See you guys last time. See you guys. Bye.